फातिमा सी वो
Sir,
म्यूट सर इज म्यूटेड, उनको अनम्यूट कर दीजिए, म्यूटेड हैं वो।
you
शर्मा
told me
सर,
before.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
जी
sir.
जी हमारी आवाज आ रही है आपको?
आपकी आ रही है बिल्कुल।
ठीक है, तो शुरू करिए। हाँ,
Yes, sir.
so with the permission of the first secretary and executive director in IDM, should we start the proceeding, sir?
Sure.
Yeah.
Up.
Sir, should we start now?
Yes.
Please start.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, all. I am Ms. Fatima, young professional, on behalf of National Institute of Disaster Management and Asian Institute of Diplomacy and International Affairs, Nepal, takes this opportunity to welcome everyone to the webinar on Role of NIDM in India's Disaster Risk Management Lessons for Nepal. We are honored to have experts with us for these deliberations. Thank you, everyone, for taking your precious time to guide and encourage in this endeavor. And before we get started, I'd like to give a brief about the webinar and our distinguished panelists. Our welcome address will be given by Professor Anil Kumar Gupta, sir, and opening address by Mr. Shyam KC AIDA. Keynote address by Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal, sir, and keynote address second by Mr. Anil Pokhrial, CEO, Executive Director, Executive Officer, Chief Executive, National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Authority. Remarks by Mr. Abhishek Upadhyay, sir, First Secretary, Commerce, Embassy of India, Nepal, and a lecture by Professor V.K. Sharma, sir, Vice Chairman, Sikkim SDA. Now, before starting the program, I'd like to give brief about Professor Anil Kumar Gupta, sir. Professor Gupta, sir, is sustainability risk management strategist working in the area of disaster management, environment, and climate resilience for more than 25 years, and national, subnational, and business administrations. He is currently in Environment, Climate, and Disaster Risk Management Division of NIDM. He is currently implementing a number of projects, including KPRS with Department of Science and Technology, the National Knowledge Mission on Climate Change, National Agriculture Disaster Management Plan with Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, Health Resilience and Capacity Building, National Health Adaptation Plan with the WHO and Ministry of Health and Family Affairs, Crisis Management Plan to deal with the contamination of water bodies, and Disaster Management Plan of Ministry with Central Pollution Control Board and Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. I will not take too much time. So, very warm welcome to each and every one of you. If you have any questions or suggestions, our chat box is open to all. Now, first of all, I would like to invite Professor Anil Kumar Gupta, sir, for his welcome address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Fatima. Good afternoon to all the dignitaries, speakers, and all the participants. It is really a matter of great pleasure for me to deliver the welcome address and organize this joint webinar by National Institute of Disaster Management and AIDIA, that is the South Asian Institute for Diplomacy, which is cooperating with the government of Nepal on various aspects of development and disaster risk reduction. It is matter of a special pleasure for me that we are also going to discuss that how the institutions and experts from both the sides can collaborate, how we can learn from each other. As I have been frequently visiting Nepal, I have been collaborating with many institutions in Nepal, particularly for the Kosi Basin program, as NIDM has been one of the key stakeholder in Kosi Basin program. So EC mode also and various other institutions like Earthquake Society, where I have been coming and visiting. So it is really a matter of happiness that we are moving ahead to institutionalize the capacity building endeavors and to see that how we can work together. We are thankful to the Executive Director in IDM, Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal, for having his all support for this initiative in this endeavor. I'm very happy to have Shri Abhishek ji, First Secretary Commerce in the Indian Embassy in Nepal. I recall my recent visit, it was in 2016 to the Indian Embassy in Nepal when Mr. Piyush ji was there. He had invited me there. So, in fact, India and Nepal is a one society. If we leave aside the political boundaries, there are a lot of cultural similarities. There are a lot of similarities in social dimensions, but also a lot of similarity in the disaster risk factors also. Like earthquake is a common challenge that both the countries face. Then the climate change related challenges like flash floods, associated landslides, then various other dimensions of the climate change. We are facing the brunt of climate risk together. So there are a number of dimensions like now India is one of the major stakeholder as our collaborators in India are steering the entire post-earthquake reconstruction process in Nepal. So we have been learning together, we have been working together, we have been collaborating together in various aspects, starting from planning, capacity building, implementation, and also various kind of methodologies, including the post-disaster assessments like PDNA process or the risk assessment process. So that is a very important aspect. This webinar of today, where we have the speakers, Professor V.K. Sharma Saab, who I can consider as an example of Indo-Nepal cooperation, because he has been the pioneer of this capacity building institution, which is now in the form of NIDM. And he has been posted in Nepal also as the chief of party for some international agencies contributing to disaster risk management. And he has a lot of experience. He is also vice chairman of Sikkim State Disaster Management Authority, which is one of the hilly state. So the challenges of hills, so which is also common. So I'm very happy. And the presence of the first secretary commerce, I think that is a great benefit, because any kind of cooperation, the things related with resilience within the commerce sector, within the business sector, within the industrial sectors, and allied sectors like tourism, transportation. There are a number of sectors where we are also trying to collaborate and cooperate, and there how to see that disasters are creating impact and how disaster resilience can be integrated. So that is an opportunity. So my my also compliments to joint team, Shyamji and Ms. Fatima from this side, and other colleagues from the institution, Sri Anilji, for taking this initiative. So over to you, Fatima, for the proceeding ahead.
Thank you so much. Now I would like to invite Mr. Sham sir for his opening address. Sham sir, over to you.
Thank you, Fatima ji. Namaste and welcome to distinguished
Sorry.
speakers and participants
Sir, your
Yeah, Kam aa
voice
rahi hai.
is
at this AIDIA and NIDM joint webinar. So, as Anil sir just stated, we know that Nepal and
sir,
India.
we can't hear you. Could you please?
आपकी आवाज थोड़ा कम आ रही है. Can you speak little louder?
Sure. Now fine?
Yes.
Okay. I'll try my best. Okay. As just stated by Anil sir, we know that Nepal and India both have highly prone to a range of natural disasters, including floods, landslide, drought, earthquakes, among others. And I think these disasters have multiple impacts besides immediate losses and displacement, like in health, in food security, and overall socio-economic development. Personally, I think right policy formulations and resources is the key for effective preparedness and response plans, and to enhance the disaster resilience of any country. For these, well-thought steps and strategies are required in the sectors like data analysis and management, capacity building and human resource mobilizations, promoting domestic and international partnership. So I believe that National Institute of Disaster Management India is pioneering in those areas. So in mainly today's discussion, we are aiming to better understand NIDM as an institute, including its organizational structure, operational overview, how it is collaborating with domestic and international partners, various aspects of human resource management and capacity building, how it is conducting the training programs, the research initiative, among others, and also what are the challenges that as an institute NIDM is facing. And how that overall initiative and experiences and achievements of NIDM can be beneficial for Nepal. So similarly, we'll also, I think, enhance our understanding about Sikkim State Disaster Management Authority and its experiences working at a state level, as we have Honorable Vice Chairman from SDM with us today. But also at the same time, sharing the Nepal's experiences in DRM itself, as we have a Chief Executive from NDRRMA Nepal, Mr. Anil Pokhrel. So I'd like to say, as institutions, AIDIA want to play some role in building better collaborations between these two government-mandated body which are working in the disaster management in respective countries. So we also think that similar platforms of discussions have the high imperatives, but it will be more effective in terms of executions when there are continuous and closer interactions between the actors involved in the same field. So I think without further ado, I'm very much excited to listen to interesting and expert reflections from our distinguished speakers. And as Fatima ji stated, we should also manage some time for Q&A at the end, make discussion more engaging. So maybe you can write or raise your hands for the questions at the end of the program. So now, without further ado, I'd like to kindly request Major General M.K. Bindal, sir, Executive Director of NIDM, for his keynote address. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shyam. First of all, heartiest welcome to all the participants, and a very well welcome to Professor V.K. Sharma, who has been our mentor for decades, and Mr. Abhishek, who's the first secretary, and all others who are present here. There's a very important webinar being conducted today, where two countries, institutions are collaborating to come out with a better DRR framework in the country. We are aware in India, we had an institutional setup which was under Ministry of Agriculture for long. But in 2005, the Disaster Management Act was framed under the guidance of India's constitution, based on which the NDMA, National Disaster Management Authority, the NDRF, National Disaster Response Force, and National Institute of Disaster Management was made into statutory bodies, and each one had definite role with lot of cross-cutting issues for which adequate provisions were made. And each state was given, the states were given the responsibility for disaster management unless it was beyond the capacity of a state. So each state also could have their own act, policy, strategy for disaster risk reduction and management. Like Gujarat state had a Management Act in 2003 itself, which gives out all the required functions, organizations, and everything. And recently, we have seen that the government of Nepal has also promulgated the Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Act 2017, DRRM Act 2017, which delineates the roles and responsibilities of the three levels of government and disaster risk reduction and management. Last year, we had a visit from a team from Nepal, from the Disaster Management Division of the Central Ministry, who had come to NDMA, who had come to NIDM, who had come to NDRF, and we had interaction with them, where we learned from each other as to how we are going about our affairs. And similarly, in Nepal also, the Act delineates the responsibilities between the three levels of the government, and it also enables that the provisions of the Act, under the provisions of the Act, the federal government has to prepare and endorse the bylaws and regulations considering the spirit of the federalism and context of the DRRM in country. The Ministry of Home Affairs is the nodal ministry at federal level in Nepal. Similar institutes at NIDM, formally, I don't know what is the plan in Nepal, which today maybe some light will be thrown on that, but there is a requirement that there should be a formal institution which is looking after the capacity development, human resources development, uh, policy advocacy, and all other related academic and training work for creating adequate capacity building in the country, as also collaborate with other partners across the world. Today, Nepal and India are interlinked by disasters in a big way. If it rains to more than a required percentage in eastern Nepal, the Kosi River gets flooded, and southern Bihar gets flooded, northern Bengal gets flooded, like we had in 2008, if you remember the massive floods. This year also, we had reached the state of flooding. However, due to nature's change, that thing was so it is happening. The tremors felt in Nepal are earthquake felt in Nepal, the tremors are felt in India, and damage occurs. And similarly, the vice versa, because we share the same Himalayan range. So there are many things. Climate change. If there is a drought in India, it is also affecting parts of Nepal. If there is a uh, heat wave, it is also affecting parts. So everything is interlinked because we are so closely located. And hence, there is a need that both the countries should work on, if possible, a common similar frameworks so that the interoperability is of very high nature. And for this particular webinar will be the path setting webinar, and it will be uh, I think it will pave way for such a interoperability and policy exchanges between the two. Now, Constitution of Nepal has identified that was in 2015 addressing the disaster risk as a key policy of the state. So that's a very good step, because loss to life, loss to environment, loss to property is not acceptable. And we are all signatories of all the international agreements which we are bound to follow. And the Schedule 7 of the Constitution also talks about disaster preparedness, rescue, relief, and rehabilitation as concurrent responsibilities of federal and provincial governments. So this concurrent responsibilities makes sure that the preparedness for the disasters in all phases of disaster management is done equally well. And Schedule 8 defines the local level disaster management as the sole responsibilities of the local governments, whereas Schedule 9 presents disaster management as concurrent responsibilities of federal, provincial, and local governments again. So uh, it can be seen that the disaster risk reduction and management uh, as per the Nepal Constitution 2015, are the shared responsibility of all three levels of the government. And that is the same thing which we are following in India. That center has got a responsibility, state has got responsibilities, and the district has got a responsibility through the district disaster management authorities. So for that, we have three levels: the National Disaster Management Authority, the State Disaster Management Authorities, and District Disaster Management Authority. So with such similar structures, there is lot that we can achieve by collaborating and working together. Uh, However, there are certain, I will say, certain suggestions for Nepal to come up with a structure which can support, which can work with an IDM, a parallel structure. And that is very much required, for which an IDM is always be ready to support any initiative if they need institutional strengthening and institutional setup expertise, uh, because ours is an IDM was established in 1993 as National Center for Disaster Management. At that time, Professor V.K. Sharma was heading the center for nearly a decade. So we have the expertise for a long past, and we will be more than happy to collaborate to help out and to learn from the experiences of Nepal. Today, we have two good speakers also who will be giving us the ground realities and the strategic vision. And I'm keen to hear all of them. So thank you, and back to you, please.
Thank you very much, sir, for sharing your experiences and also some suggestions and commitment for support. National Disaster Management Authority of India. So without further ado, I'd like to request Mr. Anil Pokhriel sir from NDRRM Nepal keynote address. Anil sir, over to you.
Thank you, Shyamji. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal Saab, Executive Director of NIDM, Professor Anil Kumar Gupta, Mr. Abhishek Upadhyay, First Secretary, Commerce, Embassy of India, Professor V.K. Sharma, Vice Chairman of Sikkim State Disaster Management Authority, Madam Neeta Pokhriyal Aryal, Minister, Economic Minister of the Embassy of Nepal, New Delhi office, Professor V.K. Sharma, and our colleagues from Ministry of Finance, colleagues from Ministry of Home Affairs, Joint Secretary Madam Humkala, and also our 3 Joint Secretaries who are currently participating from this office right now, along with another 8 to 9 Joint Undersecretaries from our office, including other colleagues, colleagues from AIDIA, MOFA, and others, and others who are participating in this event. A warm welcome on behalf of the National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Authority, Ministry of Home Affairs, the Government of Nepal. Please allow me to share huge appreciation, especially for the Government of India, NIDM, including the Nepal Embassy Office, for hosting this event, mainly focusing on sharing the lessons from NIDM India and what could be learned from a very burgeoning, very initial years, during the initial years, what NDRMA could learn from Government of India's experiences in addressing disaster risk reduction and management. As Professor Gupta, as well as Major General Saab had mentioned earlier, we save the same Ganga basin. We save the same culture. Not only that, we also happen to share the same names. My name also happens to be the same one with Professor Gupta as well. And so a lot of names are pretty much similar, especially if you look at the colleagues over here. I don't want to go into length in terms of, again, what kind of a disaster risk landscape that we share between 2 of our countries. It's pretty much the same. I just wanted to add, like, in addition to the floods, the landslides, the sediment flow that comes all the way from the headwaters of Ganga, we also get some of those events that are usually not heard of. Like, again, say for instance, the cyclone Hudhud did create some of those ripple effects even in the mountain areas. So it's not only the riverscape, the Gangascape, the hazardscape, but we also share the same airscape. So this is where these kind of joint events are of tremendous value, especially for addressing common problems such as floods, but also issues such as air quality issues and a larger disaster risk reduction management. I'd also want to take this opportunity to share huge appreciation, especially for the Government of India, for its immense support during the 2015 earthquake. We cannot express in words what a tremendous support did we receive back then, but also in terms of setting up of issues such as the National Reconstruction Authority and sharing experiences from Gujarat and other states in India to the Government of Nepal through the National Reconstruction Authority. All these experiences sharing has formally as well as informally helped come up with a new Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Act by the Government of Nepal. So in 2017, as you all have known, that we have a new act that looks at focusing on to disaster risk reduction, in addition to also continuing making our response effective. We also, in addition to this, we also would want to say that, again, it's only been 18 months ever since the NDRMA has been officially established. It's been through my appointment as the first Chief Executive of the National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Authority. We're mapped within the Ministry of Home Affairs. Our National Council is headed by Right Honorable Prime Minister. We also have a executive committee that's headed by our Honorable Minister of Home Affairs, and that's the policy making body, as well as the national plans, the national strategy action making body. We are at a very early days in terms of, again, establishing the institution, drafting our organizational structure, revisiting it, and also thinking of, again, creating a specific directorate specifically looking at knowledge research. This would largely fit into the operations that we'd want to think of. This is where our exchanges with NIDM in particular, with support from Govt of India, issues like AIDIA and others, is of tremendous value. What is of unique similarity between Govt of India and Govt of Nepal is the federal nature of addressing disaster risk reduction and management in both these countries. What we have in Nepal is also similar to Govt of India, the federal process that includes the federal government, the National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Authority, but also the provincial governments, the district disaster management committees, and the local governments that have a key role in terms of addressing the disaster risk and response. So these similarities bring us to a very unique way of learning how disaster risk reduction and management is done in such a federal context. We share near similar language as well, the culture. So it makes us so easy for us to exchange not only through the words but also physical meetings and exchanges also have been happening in various times in the past few years. There's been a tremendous support, especially from the Govt of India, in terms of not only reconstructing those houses that were damaged by the 2015 earthquake. There's an ongoing projects in specific districts, but also a continued support by the Govt of India in terms of managing floods in the Tarai, huge embankments and structures, including the COSI work that was mentioned earlier. So this all makes such an organic way of exchanging and establishing this kind of relationship, especially after the context where NDRMA has been established. So this is where we again want to share our appreciation for sharing your time, prioritizing our request for hosting this event to share experiences and learning. I'm really happy that also for bringing representatives from the Sikkim Disaster Management Authority. So even a state level exchanges would be of tremendous value. BR State Disaster Management Authority, perhaps with our provinces, with UP and other provinces as well, would be of tremendous value to us. Today begins the first event, especially after the establishment of NDRMA, and we want to take it into multiple levels in terms of learning from Govt of India's experiences even in setting up the institution, learning from its experiences, especially focusing on research, knowledge, taking it how to take it down to the local levels, and crafting our ways based on the advices and lessons learned from the Govt of India. We really look forward to hearing from the panelists today, and then continuing our relationship over time. Perhaps subsequent to these meetings, we could then start also exchanging through our respective embassy offices and through our Ministry of Foreign Affairs office as how we could starting out a more of a continued program in terms of strengthening Govt of Nepal's institutional capacity in effectively responding to disasters, but also being prepared for major events, and especially focusing on risk reduction kind of events. We've been informally learning from innovative works being done by the Govt of India, especially in looking into critical infrastructures, building the capacity of government officials, and thus this is where it marks the beginning of this exchange. So with these words, again, I'd like to share our huge appreciation for prioritizing your time over lot of other things, especially at a time when we're already facing disasters. My apologies, I couldn't come in right at the very first minute of the meeting because I was called in by our minister to plan for a response event that's happening tomorrow in one of our Melamsi River Valley. We got a major devastation right on the very first day of the monsoon activation. So there's quite a change in terms of how monsoon has been behaving in this part of the world as well. And so this all brings to the point that we need new knowledges, we need support, we need guidance, and we need perhaps joint actions in certain areas. With these words, I'd like to stop over here and pass it back to you. Over to you, Syamji. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Anil sir, for your participation. Busy schedule and priority assessment. I think you highlighted the long-standing Nepal-India cooperation in disaster management risks. sectors and also the future prospects, how India and Nepal can or should collaborate. Thank you so much for your remarks. Now I'd like to kindly request Mr. Abhishek Upadhyay, sir, First Secretary from Embassy Nepal. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Shyamji. Excellencies, Professor Anil K. Gupta, Major General M. K. Bindal, Mr. Anil Pokhrel, the CEO, Madam Neeta Pokhrel-Aryal, I don't think she is at the meeting today, Professor V.K. Sharma, Ms. Fatima, organizers, AIDIA, and everybody else who made it possible to have this event. It is my privilege to speak in this company of experts and senior dignitaries from both the countries. Especially thankful to AIDIA for putting together this event and for inviting me to speak here. India remains as committed to Nepal's economic development and transformation as its own. This is a shared goal in which the government and the people of India will always stand side by side with Nepal. This is almost like a mantra for us before we are sort of sent to serve in embassies abroad. Nepal is always seen in that particular light by our establishment and similarly by almost every person in India. In fact, since my arrival in Nepal in January this year, I've been amazed by the sheer scale, scope, and density of our relationship. There is virtually no field of human endeavor where we do not cooperate as friends and neighbors. My portfolio at this embassy concerns with our bilateral cooperation in commerce, power sector, water resources sector, and connectivity projects. Increasingly, therefore, I am realizing that almost each of these domains has relevance in disaster management. Or to put it the other way around, disaster risk management should be central to our planning and implementation in each of these domains. Our part of the world is no stranger to disasters, whether natural or man-made. We are still going through successive waves of the pandemic, which itself is a major global disaster. The esteemed speakers have already shared valuable insights into India's own disaster management system and also on Nepal's institutional structure for managing disasters. This system or these systems did not evolve in a day or a year. These are sum totals of our experiences of several decades and in several geographies. In fact, the Indian system, as far as I have known it, is a product of the learning we had from each such event, each disaster, and each effort which was made to contain it, whether it was successful or unsuccessful. Each country needs to evolve its own systems and structures for anticipating, mitigating, containing, and treating the impact of disasters. Nevertheless, disasters hardly recognize boundaries or frontiers, and this couldn't be more true than in the case of India and Nepal. This fact, therefore, underlines the need for us to cooperate regionally and internationally on all aspects of disaster management. Many of you would be aware that in recent years, India has taken a number of initiatives in this domain, visualizing, for example, the entire Indo-Pacific region as an integrated whole, even from the perspective of disaster management. The Coalition of Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, for example, is one such multilateral initiative that India has taken. The Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative also includes disaster risk reduction as one of its 7 pillars. Through such initiatives, India has demonstrated its intention to support our regional partners, but also the openness to learn from others' experiences. In the case of Nepal, I can probably highlight 2 specific suggestions in the context of transboundary rivers, which were repeatedly mentioned by the previous speakers, where I think bilateral and regional cooperation on disaster risk management becomes really crucial. We all know that the great Himalayan rivers of Mahakali, Karnali, Narayani, Bagmati, Kosi, and Mechi, by Narayani, what we call Gandak in India, these rivers that flow from Nepal to India and eventually merge into the Ganga and the Bay of Bengal have nurtured our civilization since the beginning of time. But at the same time, they have brought misery through devastating floods year after year to us. This duality of the rivers supporting world's richest agricultural economies in this region, plus through floods causing so much devastation, this has shaped our cultures for thousands of years, and even today it continues to do so. What would be evident to any person traveling across Nepal today or even in parts of India, is the rapid infrastructure development in the hilly areas, in both the countries, in fact. And also in the plains, we see ever increasing settlement of people in the floodplains. Because of these two kinds of activities, the danger of flood has increased significantly. And every year we see massive damage caused either by landslides or floods and inundation in India and Nepal, for which we find ourselves less prepared. Maybe we are improving year after year, but we can always do a little more. In fact, the CEO, I think, just mentioned about, if I'm not wrong, the Milamchi flood incident, which made a lot of news here, and it really bothered many of us. We have been trying to, in fact, piece together a flood relief package for the area also. We can probably be better prepared, and I should not stop at Milamchi. In Uttarakhand also, for example, we recently had a devastating flood in one of the headstreams of Ganga. So this has been happening year after year. We can probably be better prepared if disaster risk management becomes, in my opinion, an integral part of our bilateral discussions on water resources and connectivity. For example, we have three-tier mechanism to discuss water resources cooperation with Nepal. It covers various river basins and various subsectors, from river training works to construction of embankments, flood relief, and management of barrages on both sides and on the border. If increasingly we can factor in the idea of disaster risk management in these discussions in a structured way, I think we can do a lot more. And more importantly, again, as was just mentioned regarding the cooperation between Sikkim Disaster Management Authority and NDDRMA, probably this cooperation needs to be done at the local level also, because we sitting in the capitals can often miss important matters of detail when it comes to disaster management related cooperation. The second point I would like to make is that India spends significant resources every year to provide flood relief assistance to Nepal over and above what is our obligation under the existing bilateral agreements. India also spends significant resources in such relief within northern Indian states, and so does in fact Nepal for its own districts. Over the long term, if this amount of money that we spend in flood relief, we could start utilizing some of it in, let's say, creating a mechanism wherein we have full visibility on the water levels or weather patterns in each of the major river basins, each of the major transboundary river basins. We'll probably be able to share real-time information and better anticipate imminent disasters, and therefore minimize destructions in both our countries. My village in India, for example, is located on the banks of Saryu or Ghagra near Ayodhya. It's the same river which forms when Mahakali and Karnali join together. If someday we can have visibility of the water levels in the Karnali, starting all the way from Hilsa, all the way down to Chisapani and then to Ayodhya and further down where it meets the Ganga, probably all our communities living in these areas would find it much easier to anticipate disasters and be able to support each other in emerging stronger after such a disaster has struck us. I think bilateral cooperation and trust would be critical to this endeavor. And this is why I would like to request IDIA and NRDDMA to also consider organizing a complimentary session someday, discussing the experiences and expertise of Nepal in this domain and the lessons for India therein. In fact, Nepal's views, perceptions, and knowledge base in this domain are crucial for India as a downstream state. And Major General Bindal also, I think, just alluded to this fact when he mentioned that we also need to learn from what our friends here in Nepal have been doing, not just in terms of institutional structure, but also in terms of information sharing. So as both our countries yearn to emerge from the destruction caused by the pandemic, it is clear that the route to shared prosperity is through open supply lines and strengthened connectivity, insulating our bilateral ties and regional cooperation, not just from outside disasters like COVID, but also from, let's say, the disasters which strike us within our region, is going to be among our top priorities in the post-pandemic era. My stay in Nepal has convinced me more than ever that we have inextricable stake in each other's future. India's objective of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas is complementary to Nepal's motto of Samriddha Nepal, Sukhi Nepali. And on this note, I would like to end my remarks. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Abhishek sir, for your thoughtful remarks and also highlighting the significance of local or state level collaborations between countries and as well as the reciprocating the knowledge and experience between two countries in the national level. Thank you very much for your valuable remarks. Now, without further ado, I'd like to request, and it is my true pleasure also, to welcome Professor B.K. Sharma sir, Honorable Vice Chairman, Sikkim State Disaster Management Authority, for his special lecture. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Authority, our Executive Director of NIDM, Shri Major General Bindal sir, my colleague and friend, Professor Gupta, Fatima ji, Pokhrel sir, and other participants of this very important event which is happening today. In fact, the address of our first secretary, Mr. Abhishek Upadhyay, he has mentioned, the country's intention to work together, all development activities as well as in disaster reduction. And I am mentioned by General sir that when we set up the National Center for Disaster Management, one of the objectives was that we will serve not only to India, but to the SAARC countries. And we all thought that because the problem or natural disasters in the region, they are, we face earthquakes, we face landslides, we face all these things. India and Nepal, we have lots of similarity. In fact, I am working with Nepal since 1993 itself. 94, I was in Yokohama, and I met, Honorable Home Minister and my friend from Nepal, Dr. Ramod Mani Dikshit. He introduced me to the Home Minister, and then we introduced him to our Agriculture Minister, because Dr. Balram Jhakad was Agriculture Minister who was in Yokohama. And both leaders, they talk about bilateral cooperation, which Abhishek ji was mentioning. Both ministers were talking that our people, we have same people, same language, roti beti ka saath. नहीं हम नेचर के बारे में भी साथ साथ बात करें. And I think that was a very impressive dialogue which we had in 1994. After that, the National Center for Disaster Management was set up, and then people realized that we should have a separate center for SAARC. But I am so glad that General Bindal, today he took this initiative, and Professor Anil Gupta is always talking about regional cooperation, because our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi ji, he is always talking that nothing can be done without regional cooperation. I think we will have to take, because our issues are same. We have same situation, so we'll have to work, together in this. So I think I prepare a very brief presentation, and thank you for sharing it, because for the first time today I am having this kind of problem, in my this thing, that I am unable to do it in my computer. So actually this is not only lesson from India, but I think the title should be lesson from both the countries, because Nepal, as I know, I am going to Nepal, since last 20 years, and I worked in Nepal for about 4 years. So I know that how much capability Nepal is having and how we can work together. In fact, this is a welcome decision of government of Nepal to set up this authority under Prime Minister. In fact, I was advocating it since last 10 years or 15 years. When we had the National Disaster Management Authority, I was posted in Nepal and I advocated this. I met the Home Secretary. I gave our Disaster Management Act to him. I convinced him that I think Nepal should also have similar authority, and I think you need it because you are also suffering with natural calamities every year. You are having the earthquakes, landslides, forest fire, all the problems, which we are having in India. So I think this dialogue was going on. And that's why I think this is a very good initiative and very timely initiative that both countries should work together in disaster risk reduction. And we both have capacity to do a lot in Asia. Not only, in earthquake or floods, but in other natural disasters as well, because I know the capability of Nepal. And I know the commitment of Nepal Geological Society. I know the capacity of Nepal NGOs, like NSAT. I know the officials, they are highly committed. And this we have seen in the after the Nepal earthquake, that their commitment is amazing. I took 15 officers of Nepal Reconstruction Authority to Sikkim and they spent 3 days with us. I showed him that every house, even in villages, Sikkim, you will see that it is earthquake resistant. And our embassy, they requested me that they should be taken to Gujarat and Sikkim. So I showed them the reconstruction in Gujarat after Gujarat earthquake in 2001 and Sikkim earthquake in 2011. And both the reconstruction authority members were highly impressed and we were in touch, for a long time. I think this kind of cooperation, this type of recognition of expert of both the countries, this is required. And NIDM can be the best suitable place, for this thing. They can start this thing, at this place. And I think this is the beginning, which I am seeing today. Next slide, Fatima. Actually, NIDM, as General Bindal mentioned, that NIDM is a fulcrum. In this country, they are working in every, part of or every aspect of disaster management. They are working on preparedness, they are working on mitigation, they are working on response, they are working for, I think each and every aspect, and they are documenting every year. They are documenting the natural disasters which are happening in India. And I think NIDM blueprint, this can be taken. And there is a need of similar capacity building program in Nepal also. Because capacity building is a very important component. And I think maybe on similar line, you should have a program, So I think this is very much available. And General Bindal has already committed that all cooperation will be there. So they will be very happy to share expertise, what they are doing, training modules, and all these things are required in Nepal because Nepal, as I told you, that similar situation and similar conditions and similar type of preparedness and mitigation will be needed. Next slide. Actually, NIDM activities, I will say that start from 1994, we have started training, research, and knowledge dissemination. And same thing continuing, in a larger basis now. Now NIDM is conducting, even during COVID, they have conducted more than 100, programs. And I think their target group varies from community to senior officers. So I think NIDM, if you see the activity from NCDM time, it is manifold. But important is that they have a training module which are required. It is designed by the experts and it can be shared with Nepal. Similarly, research. I think joint research can be there, and always, they will be very happy to share. They will be very happy to be with you, in research program. We can have, evaluations of what we have done. We can have the, similar activities. Then knowledge dissemination, I think the, NIDM is publishing journals, their magazines, newsletters, and I think lots of publication which is available online, which is available, and it is free of cost. So I think lots of literature can be taken from NIDM, and this authority can keep a set of guidelines which is prepared by the NDMA and NIDM, because they have lots of books and publication on different subjects, including floods, including forest fire, and many manuals, even in the urban risk. So I have seen the literature and quality of material. This is amazing. So I think NIDM activities, you can send a team from Nepal and they can stay here, they can study that how they are doing and what is their methodology and how these modules are helping at district administration, state administration, SDMAs. I know that I am working in Sikkim. I am highly benefited by NIDM. I used to send my people in their school safety program, in their community participation program, in their flood management program, in their landslide program, in their forest fire programs, and it is highly beneficial to us. So I think it is a national level institution and doing its job, very piously. Next, please. So I think the option there are 5 options, I always say. One is knowing risk. That is, as we are saying, Sindai framework is our, Bible. And after Sindai framework, we know that the first thing is that we should know that how much is the risk, Then second thing is that risk reduction is related to good governance. And I think good governance is again a very important part. And we are collaborating and we are asking them that you give some programs to us so that we can give you that how good governance can reduce risk. So I think this is another aspect. Capacity building, this is very important part of it, and developing capabilities, at different level, different stakeholders. I think these are some of the options which you can also consider in Nepal. Actually, our Indian officers, they used to call me Nepali because I worked there for 3-4 years. And Shri R.K. Singh, when he was secretary home, he invited me as a special invitee in India-Nepal cooperation programs. And he asked me that what should be the priority and all that. So I think this, thanks to him, now he's honorable minister, but still he remembers that how I am, concerned with Nepal and how my interest is there in Nepali, officers. and developing capacity of Nepal. Next, please. Yeah. So I think, we should, NIDM is having mission, mission is disaster-free India. We have goal, and this goal is that how, we can, uh, you know, fulfill this mission and strategy and same vision. So I think these two things are important for you. In Nepal also, you should have a clear-cut mission because now there is a full-fledged authority and authority is under Honorable Prime Minister. So I think you should also have similar vision that disaster-free Nepal and you should work for that. We are, from high-powered committee, when I was member, we give some slogans and these slogans were that we will develop culture of preparedness, culture of mitigation, culture of quick response, culture of, so I think because these things cannot be there in one programs or in one day, I think it will take time and we will have to develop this capacity and we have to develop the culture of risk reduction. So I think this common strategy in both the countries, that will be very helpful. Next. Then these are the India's, checklist for disaster risk reduction. We are working, for these 4 points, which is, very much, there. Just Anilji, can you hear me or my voice is?
Sir, we
No,
can
sir,
hear
we
you.
can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, okay,
Audible, sir.
okay, okay. Okay, thank
But,
you. Thank you.
but sir, it will be great. You can just increase the distance between you and your device, so we can see you. Is it possible, sir?
Okay, okay.
Thank you.
So, yeah, thank you, thank you. So yeah, what I am saying is that India's, and I will take 5 more minutes. Please bear with me because I am very much, interested in this program, and I am so glad that this is happening, and I am overwhelmed. So I think you will not mind that if I take 5-6 minutes more. So India's checklist is that we are working on 4 things. We are working on Sindai framework for disaster risk reduction. And you might be knowing that India prepared the disaster management plan in 2016. Then we changed it in 2019. And, and in this plan, now we are having this full component of Sindai framework and all the 4 priorities and goals. So this is one. Second thing is sustainable development goals. I think we are considering that how they are related with the risk reduction and how many goals directly related, how many indirectly related, how climate change is related with the risk reduction. So this is one. Then the third thing is climate change, which is important thing and how it is having, impact on natural disasters. And our Professor Anil Gupta, he is specialized in environment and he always talk about ecosystem-based services, ecosystem, supported, risk reduction and climate change and disaster risk reduction. And fourth pillar is the Prime Minister's agenda or Prime Minister's 10 point, which he has given in the Asian ministers meeting in 2016. So I think, we are working on those lines. And now in this workshop, this can be a beginning of partnership of Nepal and India in disaster risk reduction. And I fully support the view of Abhishek ji, Upadhyay ji, who is saying that it should be mutual cooperation. It should be learning from each other. We are not, ocean of knowledge that we will just give it to somebody. I think Nepal is having lots of knowledge in disaster risk reduction. They have very capable experts, very capable officers who has experience of not only the earthquake in 2015, but number of disasters. So I think in these two areas, there can be cooperation in training as well as in research, and training for government officers, NGOs, academia, and community. Why I am saying community? Because in 2001, when there was Gujarat earthquake, we brought masons from Nepal, and my friend Dr. Amod Dikshit, he arranged these masons, and they lived here for 3 months. They trained our masons in Gujarat, in disaster, how disaster resistant, building can be constructed. And the training was given. Our Gujarati people were not knowing Nepali. Nepali masons were not knowing Gujarati. But you will not believe that this cooperation was amazing. And everybody appreciated that how, these people are working together, living together, eating together. They forgotten Nepali food and enjoyed the Gujarati one. So I think that kind of community to community, interaction, and it is possible in India and Nepal. Then research, and in research I am saying that in every area of disaster management, particularly in earthquake, particularly in floods, landslides, and GLOF, Sikkim, we have done one experiment of which is first time in Asia. We have released of water of Lonak Lake, which was increased 6 times. And this release of water by Sonam Wangchu, this was witnessed by many Nepali friends. And we have shown it to Nepal as well as Bhutan that this is a simple experiment, though it is costly. But now we are doing it in several lakes. And I will invite, this authority to visit Nepal, to visit Sikkim and see that how we have done it in Lonak Lake. Because you have so many glaciers, you have glacial lakes. All the glacial lakes are increasing in size because of climate change. And I think you need this cooperation from India and particularly from Sikkim. Next. I think we have 3 areas of mutual cooperation which is in my mind. Next, Fatima. That is learning from each other. This is one. Training, research, consultancy, and this India-Nepal cooperation in disaster risk reduction. As we are having Indo-Nepal economic cooperation program, similarly, this bilateral program can be arranged, organized by 2 countries, and it will be a very useful and very, very successful program, in my opinion. There should be a seasonal plan because now there is a season of something we should work to. We should share data. Now the whole Bihar is flooded. UP is part of UP is flooded. Nepal, Tarai. So this kind of, we should have a calendar. We should work after earthquake or landslides because India has developed lot of sensors, for landslide. In Sikkim, we are working with Amrita University and they have developed some sensors which is giving us warning for landslide. Similarly for GLOF, as I told you that we are working with the people from Ladakh. We are working, so now the Sikkimese, they are expert in GLOF. And I think we are capable to tell you that by simple siphoning of this water, bigger problem can be solved. So I think that kind of mutual cooperation may be there. I already told you that I worked in Nepal. So I was heading a program which was given to National Society for Earthquake Technology in Nepal, and it is a USAID funded program. And I know that Nepal is very capable and more than 26, 27 years old NGO, and they are very committed for earthquake. Now I convinced him that earthquake will come once in 20, 30 years. Now they are working in holistic, not only in earthquake, but they are working in all disaster risk reduction, and they have amazing, highly qualified, engineers, and so I think this kind of societies, this kind of non-governmental organization, you have several, academic people who are very, very, very knowledgeable in seismology. They have studied in IIT Roorkee and very knowledgeable. So I think this mutual cooperation is required, and these people should be involved, in this whole process. Friends, this is I say that disaster risk reduction dashboard of India and Nepal. And next slide, please. So this is, as our Upadhyay ji was mentioning, that we have a similar situation now. Both the countries, you see the disasters. India is slightly, because we have a lot of coastal area, we will be having cyclone and we have the tsunami and all these things. You are lucky that you don't have that. But rest of the disasters are same. The magnitude is same, and we can have a common program, some joint program, because disaster never, see boundaries. You have seen in earthquake in 2015 that the earthquake in Nepal, this affected in Sikkim also. This affected part of India also. Similarly, 2011, when there was earthquake in Sikkim, Nepal was also affected. So it is not boundaries. Environment and disaster, they don't have boundaries. So that's why regional cooperation is required, and I fully support, because I know our officers are very, very, good, and in embassy, I know Mr. Sham Saranji, when he was honorable ambassador, he was very much concerned, about these things, and always mentioned that there should be a cooperation in disaster risk reduction. I met Pranay Verma, and Mr. Pranay Verma gave me, this clue that there can be, mutual program between India and Nepal, and we will support it. So Indian Institute of Public Administration, we worked with Nepal for 3-4 years. I conducted 25 programs, about 290 senior officers trained in India. And not only training, it was 2 weeks mutual learning. When Nepal became federal, we gave series of training program on federalism to senior officers, secretaries of government of Nepal. Very good experience. I will say that one time all 75 LDOs trained by Indian Institute of Public Administration, and we were saying that how much similar, our problems are. And that's why the problem solving will also be the same. We train policy makers from Planning Commission, from Election Commission, your media people, and different ministries. And these exchange programs were very useful. And on similar lines, I am requesting you that kindly start this kind of mutual program, exchange program between Nepal and India. And you are most welcome. I invite you to Sikkim. you stay with us for 1 week and see that how a very small state, which is environment friendly, now they are very sensitive to disaster. There may be any program in urban area, rural area, disaster risk reduction is a component which is always considered. And I am saying that the same approach should be there in Sikkim because we speak the same language. In our Sikkim, you will not be having any problem. You know, we also speak Nepali. I also speak Nepali, but my Nepali is not very good. So I will not try. Akhilesh Mishra ji, who is secretary in Ministry of External Affairs, he speaks so good Nepali that, and it is correct, you know, grammatically and everything. So many Indians, you know, they speak very, very good Nepali. And our Sikkim, you know, they have our former chief minister, he used to write, you know, poems, which is published in Nepali newspapers. So I think we have this kind of relationship, you know, in the two countries. And that's why this workshop, this is a beginning of mutual cooperation, mutual learning. And I fully support the view of our officer, Mr. Upadhyay ji, that yes, there should be, you know, a bilateral program in disaster risk reduction. And I will add one more line. In fact, I am wearing a cap, you know, which is given by one secretary of Nepal when he came to Sikkim. And he said that because, you know, he was saying that we were sent to ADPC, we were sent to so many places, but coming to India is much, much useful to us because we have similar situation. The solution comes from here because you have, you and us, you know, Nepali people, we have similar type of things in climatic conditions, in our food habits, in our similarly natural disasters. Similarly, housing situation, you know, in Himalaya, if you see the housing in Nepal, villages of Nepal, you come to Sikkim, you come to part of West Bengal, you will see the same thing, same problems, same issues. So I think the solution lies here. And this mutual cooperation will be very, very useful and will be a very good example of regional cooperation. So with these words, I congratulate our embassy in Nepal that they spared this much of time and they are with us, you know, and this is big encouragement. And I'm saying this thing since last 30 years that we should work together in few areas, in area of environment, in area of biodiversity, in area of economic cooperation. And as I told you that I am not only saying, but I did it thanks to Ministry of External Affairs that they funded my programs and I conducted 23, 24 programs of very senior officials of Nepal. And they always remember that these programs were useful for them. So I wish that this cooperation should continue. Thank you, Sham, that you took this initiative and you are with us. And NIDM, of course, you know, they are always ready for some positive things. So thank you very much, General Vindal, sir. Over to you, Ms.
Thank you, sir.
Madam.
Thank you for your Thank you very much, sir, for your in-depth deliberations with your past experiences working in Nepal and India as well. And as you stated, we also believe that this will be the new beginning of our deeper cooperations in coming future. So thank you very much for your detailed presentations. Now, at the time, maybe we can take 2 or 3 questions. Fatima ji, do we have any questions in our chat box, sir?
Yes, I also mentioned we are open for questions and suggestions, but till now I can't find any questions from the participants. So I request to participants if they want to ask something, if they are having some suggestions also, they can ask us. We are open for questions and suggestions.
there is any, you can also unmute them. Is that possible?
Hello, are there any questions?
No, sir, not yet. I can't find any questions till here. We will wait for just 2 minutes for the questions, because I have already mentioned to the participants that we are open for questions and suggestions. So if there are some questions, any questions or suggestions from the participants, please feel free to ask.
Yeah, if there are questions, okay. Otherwise, we can invite, I think ED sir is also here. So we
Yes.
can have his closing remarks from ED sir and from the Disaster Management Authority of Nepal. I think you move ahead and yeah.
Sir, some questions are coming. It's like, how can SDG be incorporated into the agenda of DRR for both Nepal and India?
I think it is very important aspect, but it will require a little more discussion. But if any of the panelists would like to quickly respond to this, we can have a specific program on this, maybe 1 hour discussion we can have. As in our all the sectoral disaster management plans, we are integrating the insights for SDGs also, because SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals, Sendai Framework for DRR, and Paris Climate Agreement. All the three are the international protocols where India is also a signatory and Nepal is also a party. So, and we are at the same time period also, 2015 to 30. And there is a lot of overlap because the parameters which are the key parameters for Sendai framework for DRR also very important kind of a objectives among SDGs also. So I think there is a lot of overlap. We can have a specific session. I think this is very important aspect. So we can note down this topic. Maybe when we track down our series of the next webinars, this can be one of the important topic. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Noted, sir. Another question is, are there any collaborative short-term courses on DRR?
I think Professor Sharma has also spoke on this. We can share our NIDM website also to everyone.
Yes.
Fatima, you just write the NIDM website on the chat box. I
Yes.
would request the participant to visit to an IDM website and see our training calendar and the calendar of webinars also, which is open since these days. Now we are organizing only online programs, so there is no physical presence required. So even participants from the Nepal also, they can feel free to participate in these training programs. And when we work out the joint program, then we'll announce those also. Yeah.
Sir, I think
That's it.
yes, sir. No, sir. Another question is, what remains the biggest challenge for India-Nepal partnership in DRR in regarding to become the leading model of working for all of the Asian continents?
Yeah, I think the 3-4 points Professor Sharma has also mentioned, and Abhishek he also mentioned. I think one is that taking the policy and planning initiatives to local level. So that is very important aspect, and that we have been trying to do under the Kosi Basin program also. That even the early warning system and flood resilience taking at the village level. So that is important, involving communities and also village level disaster management plan. Then beside this, NIDM is also supporting various ministries of Government of India in developing the disaster management plan of various ministries and sectors. I think Nepal would also like to take this type of initiatives to integrate into sectoral developmental plans. So I think that can be also one of the areas of cooperation. Then improving technology interventions and technology applications in early warning system, then communication. I think these are the common areas where we can work together, and then documentation of the good lessons from both the sides, best practices in India, best practices in Nepal. So I think exchange of these and the literature that has been already been documented and published by NIDM. So those are the areas that has been discussed in the earlier Nepalese delegations also. Yeah.
So last question for today is, can we work on transboundary water pollution? If yes, how?
Some work is already going on these aspects. Since normal kind of pollution is not directly in the direct domain of disaster management, so disaster management, transboundary flood related issues are certainly there, and both the countries have been discussing this issue, working this issue. So water resource ministries of both the countries have been working. So certainly we can take these kind of topics also.
Can
Thank you, sir.
Phyllis ask a question?
Yes, please.
Sorry, I know it was the last question. More of a suggestion for NRDDMA and NIDM both. Would you like to have some kind of a structured cooperation between the two agencies to discuss this issue, and probably also involving the water resources departments, maybe Ministry of Jal Shakti from our side and
Yeah.
Ganga Flood Control Commission, plus DG Irrigation from the Nepal side, just to sort of increase the scope of what we already do in the water resources sector and factor the disaster risk reduction element into that. Is that doable?
Yes. Very good idea. And in fact, there is already some background existing because under the aegis of EC mode, some initiatives were there. But as you are suggesting, we can certainly work out some kind of a plan of action, and we can initiate the dialogue, and then we can work on. And initially, we can focus on the areas which are low-hanging fruits. For example, the technology cooperation, capacity building, these kind of things, and then we can move on little more the issues which will require little more diplomatic interventions also. So initially we can move on to the low hanging fruits. Yeah, certainly it can be done. So we can include this, Fatima. This is also an area. So should we request?
Yes.
I think
Yes, sir.
for closing remarks, we can request from both the sides. Shri Anil Pokhrelji from the CEO from the Disaster Management Authority of Nepal and ED and IDM. So, Fatima, please. Yeah, Shyamji. If Shyamji would like to invite her.
Shyam sir, could you please request or I can request ED sir for his closing remarks, and also I would request Chief Executive from Nepal for his closing remarks.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Fatima. It was.
Sir, you are not visible, sir. Your
No,
camera.
my videos. There's some issue with the video.
Okay, कोई बात नहीं,
connectivity
sir. आपका photo पहले मिल गया.
So, but it was a very, very interesting discussion, and Abhishek ji and Professor Vinod Kumar Sharma and CEO of NDRM, Mr. Anil Pokhrel, gave very, very valuable suggestions and way ahead, and why the need. So today, what we have done in this 1.5 hours program is established the felt need for cooperation and collaboration in the field of disaster risk reduction between the two countries and between two institutions. And like what Abhishek ji just asked about structured collaboration, that will be the right way. And if it can be included in ITEC programs or any other programs, it will be much, much better. Then getting permissions will be much easy. However, NIDM is still open to every participant, every student, anyone in Nepal to participate in its program. It was referred to by Professor Anil Gupta also. We have an NIDM website, which Fatima has been requested to post it in the chat box. And within that, we have a training portal. You need to register once, and thereafter, there are a whole lot of programs. We're running about 2 to 3 programs per day. In last 1 year, we have conducted close to 1,000 programs, and more than 3 lakh participants have been there. So that is the scale at which we have started capacity building in the country, and a large number of international participants are part of it, and we have large number of international speakers also. So expertise from Nepal is also very much welcome to take part in our programs so that we can learn from the expertise that is available in that country, because like what Professor V.K. Sharma showed, nearly 70% congruence is there in the disaster risk dashboard. I think what we can immediately start doing is attending webinars, probably training programs online, which are being conducted by in Nepal or by NIDM. By NIDM, for NIDM, I have already said so, and Professor Anil Gupta also said so, that you are more than welcome to attend, and for which no uh, permission is required from anyone. You have to just register and join the link, and a certificate of participation is given to all those who attend for 80% of the time. And these are very, very good programs, because we call resource persons from all over the world, all over the country, who are subject matter experts, and this covers the whole range of DRR, DRM that is possibly that can be covered. I think we should start with more series of programs now. Let us start with some webinars and some training programs, 3 days or 5 days, on various subjects, and depending on the topic, the respective faculty from NIDM will be coordinating. But since Professor Anil Gupta is coordinating, started the thing, I think the first few months Professor Anil Gupta can take on and organize with the NDRRMA. And by the time Abhishek ji is requested, if we can start the institutional and structured process, so that it is done in a much better form. Because when the face-to-face training will start off, then we would very much like the students or the participants from Nepal to come over to India and attend the programs here. And also once in a while, our instructors can go over to Nepal, and with the help of resource persons in Nepal, conduct some programs jointly there. So this is all I had to say, and I'm thankful to NDRRMA for agreeing to hold this program between two countries and two institutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you very much. Now I will quick request Chief Executive NDRRMA. Sir, please give your validity.
Thank you, Fatima. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak again. We've really learned a lot just from these 1.5 hours of exchanges. We more importantly learned again what a history of collaboration that has existed all these years. It's through this kind of structured discussions and deliberations, this is where we could really institutionalize our knowledge in terms of collectively addressing the kind of problems that we are jointly confronting with. Some of the takeaways notes that I've been able to chart out is again a wonderful idea of again how do we integrate, as Mr. Abhishek ji has mentioned, how do we integrate disaster risk considerations into our existing water projects, into these large scale projects that are already on the offering. That's exactly what we would really want to learn from the experiences from Govt of India and IDM, NDMA, and others, as how do you integrate disaster risk consideration into existing investments, including joint projects. We really again have been able to really advance in the last 5-6 years in terms of doing water, weather, and climate related observations. We've been able to make them real time, and that's a big area of scope where we could to not only again benefit from the same system within Nepal, but also be able to again inform downstream communities, particularly in Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, about the onset of again floods and avoid disasters. Exchange of these information has been happening in some locations, but this is where we could start starting out a more structured program. We really appreciate these ideas of again having a structured program between between Government of India and Government of Nepal to really advance these discussions. I very recently had a chance to visit the Melamchi Valley after the disaster, along with our key experts. What we've noted is in addition to the floods that it brought, what was stunning and surprising to us was an unimaginable amount of sediment deposit in the Melamchi Valley. That's what's been coming out into the pictures and to the news media. Something as high as 10 meters of sediment deposit is visible in the Melamchi Valley. But what's really not been able to still come out yet is these sediment actually flow further downstream, all the way towards the Kosi embankment, and then further downstream through the barrage to Bihar. These sediment dynamics is very least understood within the South Asia region, and especially within such fragile mountain ecosystems. The reason that the need to collectively learn this sediment process, because it has implications for the sustainability of the embankments within both Nepal and Bihar portion of the Kosi River basin. We've clearly seen that the level of the river bed has risen up substantially. Our breezes might not be able to accommodate the flow that it used to, and so this has longer term implications, not only within the Nepali infrastructures, but also perhaps it might have to some degree infrastructures in India as well. This is where collective actions in terms of really understanding not only the floods, but also the sediment dynamics that has implications on disaster management is so important and timely. So these ideas of again having structured programs, structured dialogues, not only at, again, I really like this idea, not only at the capital and capital levels, but also again, looking at multiple avenues where we could take it down to again, learnings from state to state, perhaps local to local is something that we really look forward in terms of starting our joint program. One takeaway that I could see is again the magnanimity that again NIDM has expressed in terms of again allowing all our government staff to be part of the learning portal and be able to kind of avail those services. We really admire that offering that has been made to us. By this event, I'd also want to announce to our colleagues within NDRMA and other government agencies, we'd also send it to our other ministries and departments to be part of that e-learning portal. We'd also want to make a request if we could also learn from the e-learning portal system as how we could adapt into Nepali language and to do a similar kind of e-portal for the Nepali speaking audiences. And so this is where immediate and a low-hanging fruit in terms of joint action between NIDM, Government of India, and ourselves could actually start. But that could be just one step towards again formalizing our exchanges, our capacity building initiatives. We'd want to also explore options of again inviting you all from NIDM, NDMA, and relevant agencies over to Kathmandu and over to our provinces for more structured kind of training designs on specific issues, or perhaps it could be on floods, it could be on landslides, or on particular areas such as the coalition on resilient infrastructures. That is something really I really admire the Government of India's effort. We really want to learn from PM Modi's 10-point agendas and those kind of things. So these in totality, what we could see is we've been able to get a kind of a general feeler of again what could our joint collaboration and cooperation would look like. We could clearly see that again there's so much of avenues that we could really learn from Government of India's experiences. We really look forward to that collaboration and cooperation. And today's event is just a starting for that particular pathway that we'd want to again learn from you all, but also perhaps collectively try to find answers to some collective problems that we are already facing in this joint hazard scale. So once again, huge appreciation to to NIDM, to the embassy office in Kathmandu, and to AIDIA colleagues who had really put hard efforts. Thanks also to Fatima and the entire team at NIDM for putting up this effort for today's program. Huge appreciation on part of all of us, and to really look forward for future collaboration in the days to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for your kind words. Now, now I request Professor Anil Kumar Gupta sir for his remarks.
Thank you, Fatima. At the end, I would like to extend the sincere vote of thanks for this excellent initiative to the entire team and to the Chief Executive Officer of the Nepal Disaster Risk Management Authority, to the First Secretary, Shri Abhishek Upadhyay ji, Professor Vinod Sharma Saab, and Executive Director in IDM for their presence and support in this program. I would like to compliment Shri Shyam ji and his entire team for the excellent initiative from the IDEA side, and to the entire team of IDEA to generate this idea basically, and to have this initiative and a dialogue. I would like to extend sincere thanks and greetings to Ms. Fatima for designing this program jointly with the team and taking up this initiative. I'm very happy to see a good number of participants, and as today we have identified some good number of topics to chalk out a program, and with the suggestions that have come from the Indian Embassy and the CEO of Disaster Management Authority, will chalk down a broad framework and will identify the topics in the follow-up meeting, and then the next programs will be announced soon. So thank you everyone, and thank you for gracing this occasion. Thank you, Vinod Sharma sir, for leading this initiative, because you have been the pioneer of disaster management activities in India also, and then you have always supported this kind of initiatives. Thank you, sir, and thank you everyone.
Thank you everyone.
Thank you so much, sir. Now it's official announcement for the vote of thanks. So, on behalf of National Institute of Disaster Management and Asian Institute of Diplomacy and International Affairs, Nepal, I take this opportunity to propose vote of thanks. I give a really heartfelt vote of thanks to our distinguished guests today. We had the opportunity to hear your thoughts, and this is definitely encouraging us in our future events. Your thoughts have enlightened our mind and shown us a new path. I would like to thank Mr. Anil Pokhriyal, Chief Executive, National Disaster Reduction and Management Authority. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your valuable suggestions and efforts. I would like to thank Mr. Abhishek Upadhyay, sir, First Secretary Commerce, Embassy of India. Thank you, sir. You really mentioned some important things that we should keep in mind. I would like to thank Professor VK Sharma sir. Obviously, sir, it was, I think, whole program was on your shoulder. You literally showed how NIDM has a big experience actually for the Nepal. Thank you for sharing us your important findings and thought-provoking opinions throughout webinar. I would most humbly thank our Executive Director, NITM, Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal sir, for providing his full support and guidance to conduct this training to webinar and making this a Moments event successful. I would like to express my sincere appreciation to Professor Anil Kumar Gupta sir, who generously helped us make this event come together to become a success. We couldn't have done it without you, sir. I would also like to thank Mr. Sham, sir, convener of the program, for his support. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you each and everyone for being here with us today. Thank you very much for listening us very patiently. Thank you. And I would like to, because I had some suggestions regarding a feedback. The NIDM team has prepared a user manual for all step-by-step processes, and this will enable you to know how to generate the certificate. It can be found on training website of NIDM, that training.nidm.gov.in. Please visit the website and you could find all like kind of how you could generate the certificate, all things. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.